Back to the Birdhouse Dynasty show and our week 7 injury report. We've had a lot of injuries happen over the last few weeks, a lot to some big names, and so we've got a lot of names to get over here. Let's get you started. Let's not waste any time. We're going to start it off with the Puka Nacua injury. Yes, so Puka went down with foot injury. Many didn't know whether it was an ankle injury or what it was exactly. Looks like it'll be a 2, maybe 3 week injury. I would guess 2 weeks. The Rams travel to London this week, so with an injury, it'd be real tough to travel with that and play on it actually. So then the Rams have a bye, so I'll look for Puka to miss weeks 7 and 8 and then potentially be back week 9. You can look for Devontae Adams to get an uptick in targets, as well as Whittington if you need a desperation flex play. Whittington would be somebody that I would look into to scoop up late there. Now we'll get into some guys who I do expect to play week 7, and we'll start that off with George Kittle. So Kittle, of course, went down week 1 of the season. He's been on the PUP list since then, but he's designated to return to practice on Wednesday. So look for George Kittle to be back in action potentially this week. That's exciting news. I know many had drafted Kittle early, and so, yeah, good news on the George Kittle front there. Now, the rest of the Niners we'll get into shortly, but first, I want to touch on CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb going up against the Washington Commanders this Sunday night. Commanders coming off the rough loss last evening, and the Cowboys also coming off of a close loss to the Panthers this week. Expect CeeDee to play this Sunday night. Now, if you have the auto sub feature in your sleeper league, by all means use it just to be sure. Otherwise, have another backup option just in case CeeDee doesn't play. But CeeDee's a pro's pro. All right, this guy wants to get out there. He tried coming back out there when he initially had this injury, and you know he's chomping at the bit to get back out there with this ankle injury, but he's looking good right now for some action this Sunday night. Next up, we've got a litany of injuries with the Buccaneers. Egbuka went down last week. We already have Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving listed as out for Monday night at Detroit with a big one. Bucks at 5-1, Lions at 4-2. So Mike Evans could be expected to play again. This is one where if you have the auto sub feature, make sure you use it on Evans, but Evans looks to be able to be playing this week with the hamstring injury. Could be a scenario where, like last year, they kind of rushed him back and he re-injured it, but Big Mike, he's always ready to get back out there. He's done a lot for this franchise, and so he wants to be out there playing. All right. Next up, we've got another wily vet that looks to be back this coming week. That'll be for Sunday Night Football against those Cowboys. Terry McLaurin couldn't make it out there week 6, but he's expected to return from this quad injury week 7, Sunday night against the Cowboys. So expect McLaurin back. That'll be a big bump for Jaden Daniels. He really could use the help. If you watched any of that game last night, you saw the struggles he had. Zach Ertz has been really his only safety blanket. So JD could really use McLaurin back here, who's missed 3 games now after signing the big extension right before the season started. Next up, we've got Chuba. Yes, Chuba Hubbard should be able to return this week. He suffered a calf injury before the week 5 game, and then we had the explosion of Rico Dowdle. Now, just because Chuba's coming back doesn't mean he gets to assume his old role. Not with not with Rico Dowdle putting up almost 500 yards of total offense in the last 2 weeks. Look for this to be more of a 50-50 split, and they ride the hot hand. If it's not that, you could actually see Rico Dowdle taking a lot of the first and second down opportunities, with Chuba being more of the third down guy. But the way these two operate, they may just take whole drives and then just shift off every other drive here. I know that Chuba had the big contract signing that he got last year, but I don't think that necessarily means he just automatically gets his number one rollback. So if you have to start Chuba this week, again, use that auto sub feature, but I think Chuba will be back. Just temper your expectations with the big Rico Dowdle explosion over the last few weeks. Next up, we've got Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall had potentially been able to be back in week 6 against the Bucks, but didn't quite make it. Look for him. Watch the reports this week in practice, but I think Pearsall should be back for the Niners. That could be huge. Then they'll have Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, and Kittle back, as well as Brock Purdy. Yes, Brock Purdy looking to return to the Niners offense. So you could really see an uptick for the Niners this week. They forget now who they're taking on. Who are the Niners playing? There it is. Niners take on Atlanta. That's right. So it's a big matchup. Atlanta coming off of the big win over the Bills last night, and so yeah, the Niners could use every little help possible. Purdy with that toe injury that he re-aggravated when he came back too early. But Mac Jones, I'll tell you, as a Bucs fan, I respect Mac Jones. He was a gamer last week. You could tell he was hurting out there. Multiple injuries for Mac Jones, his knee, as well as his, his shoulder. And you could just tell he was grimacing out there on the field, but toughed it out. Didn't quite get the victory for the Niners, but yeah, Brock Purdy should be back this week, so potentially you could see Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Juwan Jennings in full, and I shouldn't say in full. He played last week, also a gamer. I mean, the dude played with 5 broken ribs and multiple ankle sprains, a low ankle sprain on one foot and a high ankle sprain on the other. So Jennings will be out there, but the Kendrick Bourne train may have left the building basically there if Pearsall's also back this week. And we've got a few others, 2 more quarterbacks. We've got J.J. McCarthy coming off of his bye. Look for him to be back. I think this was the plan all along for the Vikings. They've got a banged-up Carson Wentz now. And so I think that if practice goes well, you could see should see McCarthy back this week for the Vikings. All right. Then you have Kyler Murray. Murray sat out with a late foot sprain last week. Jacoby Brissett came in and looked like he was fine running the offense. So maybe they'll sit Kyler one more week, but he should be healthy enough to play this week. So another situation to monitor right now. And then finally at moving on to the receivers, some other receivers. We've got Marvin Harrison now. Harrison, I'd say, is more 50-50. It's a concussion. So it's whether or not he can pass concussion protocol, whether he'll be back this week. Zay Jones stepped up in that regard. So if you need another desperation flex play, just monitor Marvin Harrison and his concussion issue. Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston popped up on the injury report last week, Wednesday, with a hamstring issue. I was really scared of that. He logged some limited practice reps during the week, but then was a late scratch. So again, this is one where obviously we want Quentin in our lineups the way he's been playing so far this year. But if he's unable to make it, make sure you use the auto sub feature on Quentin Johnston. Now, a couple guys who have not played much this year. Jalen Coker hasn't seen the field yet, but he's been looking like he'd be back. Now, this week, I expect him to be back fully from the, what was it, a quad injury? Yeah. So, expect Coker to be back. If he's hanging out on your waiver wire, definitely get in on him. Hopefully, you got in on him last week if he was still out on waivers. Otherwise, he's just been sitting on teams' IRs, and you can look for Coker to be maybe a bye week replacement at your flex, either this week or next week. And finally, Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney has not had a great season. He started off the season with a shoulder issue, then popped up with a hamstring issue late Sunday, and wasn't able to play Monday night against the Bills. I expect him to be back next week against the Niners, but another situation to monitor there. All right, now let's get into some players. Let's get into some players who I expect not to play this week. Let me clear this up here, and we'll get you to that. So what have you been doing with your injuries, or how have you been playing it is the better question. The way I look at it, man, these guys are playing football. Injuries are not a good excuse. Of course, if you have like your first 4 or 5 round picks in a redraft, it's tough to overcome, but in Dynasty, there's ways to get around it. And if you've been missing CeeDee Lamb for a couple of weeks, that's no excuse to just throw in the towel, okay? If you had Malik Neighbors go down with injury, right, that doesn't mean it's the end of your season. Guys get hurt. It happens every single year. So why do people keep using it as the excuse? I don't know. It makes me laugh a lot when people cry about the injuries, but we do have one player who we know will be back this week, and that, my friends, finally, we will have the return of Rash Rice to the lineup for the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs will be taking on, who do they take on the Raiders this week, so a good start for Rash Rice right out the gate. You've been seeing Mahomes spread the ball around a lot, whether it's dumping it off to Kelsey as always, or to Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton. They all have been getting their opportunities, but now that might be all gone with the monster Rash Rice. I would expect him to get 10-plus targets right out the gate. He's not. I mean, he's fully healthy. He's ready to go. And, yeah, count me in as one of those who's super excited about that. So let's get to the guys, though, who unfortunately will likely not play this week, starting with Brock Bowers. Bowers, of course, having the knee injury. It's gonna be tough to see him play this week. So I would plan on him being out at least 1 or 2 more weeks, and then even when he does look like he's ready to play, it might be a game time decision for him. Next up, we've got the unfortunate injury to Emeka Egbuka, not just from my end as a Bucks fan, but with their extremely injured receiver room between Chris Godwin, who's out for sure, Mike Evans, who's possibly back this week. Then you have Egbuka. So with Egbuka being out, I think his hamstring injury, it'll probably be 2 to 3 weeks expected. It's considered more of a mild hamstring injury, but the Bucks have a bye in week 9. So expect them to sit him through those games and the bye. And then he'll be back week 10. Now with the Bucks, all these injuries, if you remember last year, Baker didn't stumble last year when Evans and Godwin were out. No, Cade Otton stepped it up. So if Otton is available for you and you're struggling at tight end, or it's a real deep league and you need a desperation flex, Cade Otton wouldn't be a bad option. Remember, he smashed in those weeks, those 4 weeks there. Didn't do much else afterwards, but I'm telling you, you could do worse because it's looking like the Tez Johnson and Cam Johnson show if Evans isn't out there. So, and a healthy dose of Rashad White as well for the Bucks. Now, next up, we're going to talk GW. That's Garrett Wilson. Wilson suffered an injury over in London last week, and that putrid performance from Justin Fields. I don't know if Wilson just wants to not play. No, he at first he had a hip injury, and then he got this knee thing that came up. It was a hyperextended knee. Expect him to be out probably 2 to 3 weeks. That's what I would plan on. I know I've got a few shares of Garrett, and I'm hoping for him to get back. I know it's tough for him. It's been a real rough season. He was arguing with the coach, and probably wasn't Aaron Glenn's fault because he doesn't really call the offensive plays, and he's not the one hanging on to the football forever back there. I mean, 9 sacks last week from Justin Fields. Don't look for anybody on the Jets roster to try and replicate these target share numbers for Garrett Wilson. I would just bypass the whole Jets offense, sans Breece Hall altogether. All right. Then we've got Chris Godwin. Godwin probably tried to return too early, and now he's got a fibula issue. So again, another situation where I expect the Bucks, as long as Tez and Cam Johnson can roll on out there and whoever would pick up off of waivers, I think that Godwin will probably be out until after the I just want to make sure on our bye week. I can't remember if it's week 9 or 10 now. Where is it? There we go, week 9. Okay, so expect him to be out these next 2 games against Detroit and New Orleans, and then the bye, and then we'll see what he looks like in week 10. I'm a little more sure on Egbuka's return because that's just considered so far a mild hamstring. There is a MRI we're waiting on results from for Puka. But Godwin, this is an injury that's related to last season's injury, and then he had multiple surgeries on. So Godwin's kind of truly week to week. And from my experience, when they say week to week, that does mean multiple weeks. So I expect him to possibly return week 10 following the bye. Then we have the Bucks running back, Bucky Irving, who's been out for a couple weeks now, and Rashad White has done well in his absence. Bucky's got multiple injuries, his foot and shoulder issues. He played through it against the Eagles, but yeah, this is another one where I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks held him out until after the bye. Rashad White's been playing well. Still have Sean Tucker there. There's no reason to rush him back, in other words. Yeah, it's nice that the Bucks are at 5-1. Maybe gives them an opportunity to afford a loss here against the Lions. They're playing the Saints the following week. Not that we're supposed to look ahead and see that, but yeah, I think they're just going to run Rashad White out there once again. So expect Bucky probably to be out until after the bye as well. Then we've got another running back, Aaron Jones, for the Minnesota Vikings. He's been on IR for, of course, a hamstring issue. It's every year with this guy, but he needs his explosiveness to be effective. And so if he's not ready, and week 7 he will not be ready. He's preparing for a week 8 return now that the Vikings, they've already had their bye week. So expect week 8 for Aaron Jones. Next up, we've got Calvin Ridley. Ridley suffered a hamstring injury this past week. Expect him to miss 2 to 3 weeks. This should give Elikayo Manor and some more opportunities. Van Jefferson received the biggest uptick there. I don't know how much you want to buy into the Titans offense right now, but there should be a little change in something. We don't know what exactly, but with Callahan out this week, you should be getting some kind of change, and it can't be anything but positive for Cam Ward there with the Titans, because I don't know that things could get any worse than they were. All right, a couple other guys. Christian Watson, who hasn't played this year with the knee injury, he probably will sit one more week there for the Packers. They've already had their bye week, and he didn't come back right away, so I think they're in no hurry there with all their wide receivers. They're going to make sure Watson is fully 100% and ready to go. He's a dude that can basically get injured rolling out of bed. So, yeah, they want him to be 100% before they throw him back out onto the field. Expect him to sit week 7 before he comes back, possibly week 8. Brandon Ayuk, another Niner that's hurt but won't probably be back this week, while the others probably will. Brandon Ayuk, we're looking at a week 10 return for that knee injury he suffered last year. I think the Niners have just been playing it cautious. Maybe it's just the fact that Ayuk got paid last year and he's taking his time with this one. But either way, the Niners, if they're going to get back into the playoff race here, well, I shouldn't say get back into it. They're 4-2, so they're right in the thick of it. But with having Pearsall and Juwan Jennings and now Kittle back, probably there's really no hurry here to have your third wide receiver and one of the top 4 options, along with McCaffrey. He's healthy right now, so they're just taking it slow with Ayuk. Expect him back week 10. And we've got a couple of other not so big names, I guess, but Mike Gesicki. The Bengals are playing on Thursday night, so he's expected to be out for a while. He suffered a pectoral injury against the Packers this last week, so Gesicki, somebody who you could probably drop in a redraft. You could even drop in a dynasty format if you have to at his age. But yeah, if you've got room on your injury, on your IR, go ahead and throw him on there. He'll be on there for a while. And then finally, I don't know. I don't like laughing at injuries, but it just seems to be par for the course here with Anthony Richardson. Somehow he smacked a rubber band. It's one of those stretching rubber bands. Yeah, he smacked it under his eye and injured his orbital bone. And so he'll be out at least 2 to 3 weeks here. Actually, no, he was placed on IR earlier. So that's 4 weeks for Anthony Richardson. That means the pride of the Irish, Riley Leonard, moves into the backup role for Daniel Jones. So if you're in a super deep league where you roster almost all backup quarterbacks, make sure you scoop up Riley Leonard now, just in case Danny Dimes goes down. This offense is running on all cylinders. I don't know that it'll be that case if Riley Leonard has to take over, but nonetheless, Riley Leonard is now the backup in Indy, and Anthony Richardson just continuously suffers more setback after setback. That's all I've got for you. Be sure to check out more from the Birdhouse Dynasty Show. You can check me out at clemke007_FF on X. And check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show, as well as having the ability to buy me a coffee anytime you'd like. And I'll throw you my 2 cents on whatever question it is. You can check me out there at buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. Thanks for joining tonight, and remember to never stop working.